So you think cybercrime is all about stolen credit cards and leaked emails? Well, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. The truth is, the modern threat landscape is way more complex and, frankly, more dangerous than most people realize. In this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers to understand not just what the attacks are, but why they happen and where they're headed next. All right, let's dive in. Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the tactics, let's just take a moment to get our heads around the sheer scale of this problem. The numbers, well, they're pretty staggering, and they really give you a sense of what we're all up against. First up, let's talk about the money. The security firm McAfee estimates that cybercrime costs the global economy a cool $1 trillion. Yeah, that's a 1 with 12 zeros after it. It's just a massive, massive drain on our collective resources. And you know, it's not just about the cash. Get this. In just the first half of 2020, a mind-boggling 36 billion records were exposed in data breaches. That's billions of pieces of our personal info, our corporate data, just suddenly out there for the taking. And here's the thing. This problem isn't getting better. It's actually getting worse, a lot worse. A study by the Ponemon Institute and Accenture found that security breaches have jumped by 67% over the last 5 years. So this threat isn't just huge, it's growing at a pretty frightening pace. So with all that going on, how is anyone supposed to deal with it? Well, here's a really powerful way to think about it. A purely defensive strategy is like walking blind in a dark room. You're just waiting around, hoping you don't get hit. And this brings us right to the core idea of this whole explainer. We have to shift from just reacting to stuff to actually getting proactive about cybersecurity. You know, if you really want to see how fast this whole landscape can change, you don't have to look any further than the COVID-19 pandemic. It created what you could only call a perfect storm of opportunity for cybercriminals. Let's take a closer look at what happened. Just look at this breakdown of the attacks. It's really something. A 2020 Interpol report shows how attackers immediately weaponized the crisis. Phishing and scam fraud, you know, the stuff that preys on our fear and our need for information, accounted for a staggering 59% of all pandemic-related cyber incidents. And that really gets to the heart of it, right? It's the human element. As Interpol's head Jürgen Stock pointed out, this wasn't just some technical problem. Attackers were actively exploiting our collective anxiety, using our desperate need for information as a weapon against us. And think about it. The whole world suddenly started working from home. It was a security nightmare. Almost 3/4 of workers got zero security training for their new at-home setups. People started using their personal email and apps for work stuff, creating this huge shadow IT problem. And you can bet the attackers noticed. Brute force attacks on those remote connection tools, they searched for millions into the billions. Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. Let's talk about deception. Because the motivation behind a cyber attack isn't always what you think it is. In fact, deception is one of a hacker's most powerful tools. Take ransomware, for example. We all know how that works, right? Criminals lock up your files and demand a ransom to get them back. But what if the ransom was just a distraction? What if the real goal was something way, way more sinister? So have a look at these two ransom notes. On the left, you've got WannaCry, that infamous attack from 2017. And on the right, a variant of Petya that popped up about a month later. They look almost identical, don't they? Both demand Bitcoin to decrypt your files. But that's pretty much where the similarities end. But here's the twist, the kicker, really. Researchers dug into it and discovered that this Petya variant, which they called XPET, was designed so the attackers couldn't decrypt the data. The whole system for managing the keys was intentionally broken. That ransom demand, it was a complete fake. So what was the point? Well, that's when you look at the data. This chart shows where the infections happened, and over 60% of the affected machines were in Ukraine. This was never about making money. This was a targeted act of cyber warfare, a wiper attack disguised as ransomware, designed for one reason, to disrupt and destroy systems inside a specific country. And that kind of thinking, that deception, that goal of pure disruption, it's so important to understand, because it tells us where this is all going next. The battlefield is expanding way beyond our computers and out into the physical world. Do you remember that day back in 2016 when it felt like half the internet just stopped working? Well, this map shows you why. The culprit was a botnet called Mirai, and what it did was infect millions of everyday IoT devices, smart TVs, webcams, you name it, and turn them into a weapon. That's right, your TV literally became part of a digital army.
And listen, that's just scratching the surface. The next targets are the very technologies we're becoming more and more reliant on every single day. Researchers have already shown how to remotely hack and control cars. Drones are being used for all sorts of criminal activities. Even friendly social robots have been hacked and used to demand a ransom. This is the new reality of the attack surface.
Okay, so what do we do with all of this? How do we even begin to navigate this new, dangerous world? Let's try to bring it all together. And really, it all comes back to that idea we started with. We have to fundamentally shift our mindset. A reactive posture is just waiting in the dark to get hit. A proactive posture, though, that's like turning on the light. It's about using threat intelligence to understand an attacker's motivations and their capabilities before they strike, so you can actually see them coming. And that leaves us with the single most important question you can ask. In a world where ransomware can be a smokescreen for cyber warfare, and your smart TV can be part of a global botnet, just building higher walls isn't going to cut it. You have to know what's lurking on the other side. So what's in your blind spot?